In the 8th ward, yeah, 12,283 people voted in the 8th ward. In the 21st ward, 13,073 people voted. Now, let's go to the 19th ward. The 19th ward had 22,704 people vote. The 19th ward had 22,704 people vote, twice the amount of people as some of our wards. We used to be the highest vote getting ward in the city of Chicago. We got to get back to that. When you have big voting numbers, you have more respect in City Hall, and that's just the honest truth. But we as people, we have to also demand accountability for those who represent us. And we have to communicate with our neighbors. I'm not talking about through social media neither. I'm talking about actually talking to your neighbor next door. So please, we have to get back to that. When we hold people accountable and when we communicate among each other and our neighbors and our friends, we will have a better community. So that's why we're putting this event on today, to hold these gentlemen accountable, whoever the winner is, to be accountable to the residents of the 6th ward. You can support whoever you want for mayor or whoever the mayor is there, but you got to be accountable to us, the voters, first and foremost. Okay? Now, today's event is moderated by Mr. Eric Johnson. He is an outstanding, award-winning journalist from the Chicago Crusader newspaper. Our timekeeper is Ms. Lori Burns, a board member. We also have Mr. William Davis, who's a board member of the Chesterfield Community Council, our president, Ms. Elizabeth Prowl, as well as our secretary, Ms. Keisha Lambert, and there are more officers I know are coming. So right now I want to turn over to our moderator and our friend, Mr. Eric Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning to all of you. And good morning to our candidates, Pastor William Hall and Pastor Richard Wooten. Before we get started, let's go over some ground rules for this forum. No political campaign materials will be circulated inside this forum. All campaign political materials will be on display outside of this forum. The audience is to respectfully refrain from excessive exuberance for or against candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to my questions. Remarks should focus on the challenges of the office and the remedies. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to questions from me, the moderator, and community members. All questions from the audience will be written down and given to a representative from the community group who will give it to the moderator. Questions will be screened by community representatives in order to avoid partisan questions and to facilitate substantive dialogue. No questions from the floor will be entertained. Disruptive behavior will not be tolerated and will lead to immediate removal from the forum. Let me just give you a little background information. There has been some concern about me being the moderator for this forum because many of you are already aware that the Crusader has endorsed Pastor William Hall. Let me inform you that news and editorial are totally two different departments at any newspaper across the country. I do strictly news. Endorsements are opinion. They are not news. It's strictly from editorial. As many of you know, I have done many controversial stories that have gone against the opinion side of our newspaper, and it will remain that way. Today, I will remain neutral as always, so I don't think there should be any concern or any worry in that regard. Thank you. My first question is one question that has perhaps been a concern in the 6th ward for the longest time, and that's these neighborhoods. Many of these neighborhoods have been struggling to keep the streets clean. What's your plan? And I will start with Pastor Wooten. What's your plan, and specifically in cleaning up these areas in your ward?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for that question.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Hold on. We skipped a portion. We would like for both of you to introduce yourselves. 2 minutes. Thank you. Yes, Pastor Wooten, go ahead.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Richard Wooten. I'm a United States Army veteran, served in the Desert Storm War. Was blessed to come home and to be able to become a Chicago police officer, where I've served for 23 years. I served 10 years in the Inglewood District, and I served 13 years in the Auburn Gresham District that actually service the communities that most of you are in. I was the beat liaison officer for those in that district, and I held community meetings between police and community. My job specifically is to engage community and help reduce the crime in the community. We were very successful in that because in a 5-year period, I was able to shoot from the district being number 17 to being number 2 in the city with problem solving, with community, and engaging crime and solving problems. I'm also a pastor. I'm a community leader. I'm the president of the Greater Chatham Alliance. For over 20 years, I have serviced this community. For over 20 years, I have been the face of the police department that put everything on the line. I fought for police reform, and I got the consent decree, as well as COPA, and what you all have voted for, the district councils, as a part of our ability as a community to engage and become part of the problem-solving process in our community. So that's who I am. I'm a servant, and I'm a committed person that will fight for my community. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I want to say welcome to my neighborhood. I live right down the street on Wabash, where I've been living for 38 years of my life. In the span of 38 years, I've spent 10 on 80th in Michigan, serving as the pastor of St. James Community Church, in which we grew a handful of people, matter of fact, just 6. And we grew what we had with what we had. And over the last 10 years, we've been a beacon of hope right there in the community. In addition to that, I worked with a lot of wise leaders, a lot of servant leaders in the city of Chicago, having worked at a lot of the leading churches, Trinity United Church of Christ, Apostolic. And then I had the privilege to work alongside Reverend Jackson for 7 years, 4 of which we traveled the world everywhere but Australia. So I've seen a lot, I've done a lot, but there's no place like home. And so as a son of a block club president, I was drug around in every type of meeting you can imagine, heard every type of complaint you can imagine, but witnessed what it means to work together as community to build together. So it's the wisdom of Miss Mamie Till, it's the insight of those in my home and those in my neighborhood that have brought me here today. And hopefully we can have a conversation and dialogue so that we can build something together. So again, my name is William Hall, and good morning, and let's have a conversation here.
Thank you, Pastor Hall. Pastor Wooten, first question. Remember, you have 2 minutes to respond. 1 minute to respond. What's your specific plan in cleaning up these neighborhoods in the 6th Ward?
Okay, when we talk about cleaning up, we talk about there's 2 different types of cleaning up that we have to do in the 6th Ward. One, we have to actually clean up from a public safety standpoint. Second, we have to clean up our trash in our community. That's the quality of life. Everything is about quality of life. And we have to make sure that, one, we hold everybody accountable. One, we have to hold our superintendents accountable, because they need to make sure that they're riding throughout the wards and making sure that trash is being picked up, making sure that we have the system in place that works with the grid that has been given unto us to ensure that our neighbors are doing what they're supposed to do, putting trash in their trash cans. I tell people all the time about my neighbor who have had grass this high, and when I called the alderman's office, they never came out. We have to hold our community also responsible. We have to show them that we are very much concerned about the trash in our community, and we want to make sure it's cleaned up. We need to stop finding people who have a lack of respect in our community, whether it's residents or whether it's business. We have to hold everybody accountable. Thank you very much.
One of the things that I will do first, let's talk about making our neighborhood aesthetically clean. That was the question. And when you look outside and you drive along State Street, when you go right here to McDonald's, when you go to Burger King, when you go to Harold's on 87, those are deposits of trash. So number one, we're going to talk to business owners about making sure that their businesses are kept clean. If they're open, they're using our money. So we want to see investment in cleanliness. The second thing that people may not know is that the Alderman office gets micro grants for neighborhood beautification. When I was growing up, Mayor Daley had a competition amongst block clubs. Those micro grants will go right back to the block clubs. Flower beds is what I grew up watching and seeing neighbors plant. And so we're going to invest in block clubs to make them beautification places in our ward. Then the third thing, instead of blaming the superintendent, I'm going to ride with the superintendent. He may not work for me directly, but he works with me. And so one of the things we will have is ward soup days, in which I'll be in the car, bringing what the block clubs have said is hot spots and problematic spots in the clean neighborhood. Now, the strategy for safety, we'll talk about that later. But what we do need to do right now is communicate so that we can keep it clean together. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Hall. My second question is on the subject of business development. Some businesses have closed for good after they were looted during the George Floyd protests. Others closed during the pandemic. What's your plan, starting with you, Pastor Hall, to stop disinvestment and revive businesses in the 6th Ward?
Well, people don't spend money where they're not safe. So it makes it hard to compel people to come to the 6th Ward where there's carjackings, catalytic converters, and businesses that are irresponsible that allow patrons to tear up their lawns when they let out late in the middle of the night. So first thing we're going to do is have a safety plan so that people can feel safe when they come to the 6th Ward. When you go downtown, Neiman's Market, when you go on Rush Street, there are officers that are there. They don't allow any of that shoplifting, and if they do, it's in the wee hours of the morning where somebody might have been asleep. But the point is that we're going to have a safety plan that allows shoppers to feel safe. Secondly, businesses that close, one of the things that businesses don't have in this ward that I've heard time and time again are coaches. I believe in a cohort model. And so one of the 6 meetings in which I said I will have will be with business owners, in which they can come and talk to experts so that they can scale their businesses and not be condemned because they did not know. And so my monthly meetings will have resources for businesses, including banks, so that they can know how to scale loans and do whatever is necessary to sustain themselves. We cannot beat down businesses. We got to build with businesses.
Building our economic structure is very important. We don't have the Army and Luz. We don't have the Isolas like we used to. We never replaced it like we should have. Instead, we have had 38 liquor establishments established in our community and not one grocery store. Chatham Foods is gone. People are suffering in our community. We need to begin to start focusing on bringing Black businesses back into our community. We need to make sure that we can build a chamber of commerce in our ward so we can actually have an opportunity to help our businesses with resources and opportunity grants so they can actually continue to build. Our community need businesses that look just like us. You know, the pandemic was just a part of what we lost. Okay, but the pandemic was not the whole truth of how our community have lost business. We lost business because we have had poor leadership. We didn't have a structure in place to help our businesses grow. We have the Obama Center coming to the north of us, and we have the Pullman Historical District on the south of us. Those are going to be big revenue generators, and if we don't get our act together right now and start bringing businesses in our community and start building, we're going to lose a lot of revenue that's going to be able to actually help us grow.
Thank you, Pastor Wilson. Let's talk about housing. Black home ownership, let's face it, and affordable housing are problems in the Black community. What are your ideas in addressing these problems in the 6th Ward? Pastor Wooten?
Housing is a big issue. I was riding down the street on Calumet, and I saw around 82nd and Calumet where a house that was actually totally destroyed with the windows all broken out and spray painted inside of the walls inside in the house. And apparently the house was foreclosed. We have a lot of foreclosures going on. We have a lot of properties being overtaxed. We have a lot of seniors in our community. We need to be merging in with neighborhood housing associations to help us restore value back into our community. We can no longer accept the fact that people are leaving our communities because they feel unsafe in our community. Yes, a safe community is a prosperous community. And as we begin to start building prosperity, we have to look at the taxation that's going on in our communities, but we also have to create partnerships with like neighborhood housing association that would help us build an environment where people will want to come to. So what do we do with the housing? We make it much more affordable and we make it much more attractive. And we actually have to make sure that we deal with the county to make sure that our seniors have an exemption in place that is going to protect them in their homes. Thank you.
Well, one of the things that we've done in the last 3 months is we work with a Black bank called Liberty Bank. That's, matter of fact, where our campaign's finances are. Liberty Bank has a product right now that leads you to a path of home ownership for first-time buyers. And so what we're going to do is bring the banks to the ward. Right down the street, though they're not in the ward, Seaway, historically now Self-Help has a product that will ensure that will fund a loan 105%. Those are people that we've already met with, and we've already put keys in the hands of first home owners in this ward. The second thing that we're going to do is make sure that our block clubs are, again, equipped. We're not neighborly anymore. As a block club kid, my father had the keys of almost half the blocks, open up the door, get the mail when people were on vacation. We have to get back neighborly. The number one attractive thing to developers right now are not big boxes, it's single family homes. The lots that we have, we will do an inventory. We will do an inventory of the vacant lots. We will bring the banks to the table. We will bring homeowners and say, hey, build from scratch, or here's what's available. But let's say this, Black people move in neighborhoods and still got to travel to get what's theirs. White people move into neighborhoods because of what the neighborhood offers.
Thank you. Let's turn to crime. Carjackings and crime are at levels we've never experienced before, especially here on the South Side. People are afraid to report crimes when they see it. Few license plate readers are available in some of these neighborhoods. How would you address, or how would you engage residents to become more involved, in helping address this problem? Pastor Hall?
Well, one of the things I'm proposing is that when we look outside 87th Street, there's an exit, 83rd Street, there's an exit, 79th, 75th, there's no cops present. So a lot of the violence is right there at the corner where you can get in, get out. So what I'm proposing is cops station, State, King, St. Lawrence, Cottage, or all of the major thoroughfares. When you call, you won't have to wait 30 minutes to an hour, and they may not show up. They will be present 5 to 10 minutes to show up. That's number one. Number two, your concerns, you're quiet. Somebody needs to speak up for you. So when I go to CAP meetings, beat meetings, superintendent meetings, y'all come in with me, either in paper or in person. The third thing we have to do is move from these apps and begin to communicate amongst blocks. If you don't have a cell phone, you don't have a GroupMe app, you don't know what's going on the block around you. And so what we have to do is have regional block clubs in the alderman's office, because what's happening on Michigan might be happening on Wabash. What's happening on Wabash might be happening on King. And so I get it. Neighbors are afraid, but that's what I would do as your alderman, is champion a safety plan that looks and reflects your ideas. The last thing is just love each other. Thank you.
Well, when we talk about crime, we have to be very strategic about how we deal with it. Right now, we already have a problem with police response time. So if police response time is a problem, you definitely can't sit an officer down at a stationary location. But what we must do is what we call beat integrity. Make sure the officers are patrolling in the area where they're supposed to be patrolling and not out on the other side of the district answering other jobs. We need to begin to actually have foot patrol in our community. See, if you have not been on the department, you can't understand the department. But I understand the department, I understand how it works. Beat integrity, foot patrol is the thing that we need to hold the department accountable for, and it can be done because it's mandated and it's written in policy that it must be done. So we have to enforce that. Second thing we have to do, we have to communicate and build some type of promise within the community so community can start talking. What I've done in my own spare time with my own money, there's an app that I've developed. It's called the Eyes Witness app. And it's merely an app where it allows community members to actually engage in the safety in their own community. We need to invest money back into our block clubs and into our community organizations.
Thank you, Pastor. One issue that's been very important these past decade, in fact, is community policing. There is concern that police accountability and police reforms will suffer as Chicago steps up its efforts to fight crime under our next mayor. Black aldermen have often been criticized for being silent when the cases like Laquan McDonald and Anjanette Young emerge. Do you see this as a challenge as a potential freshman alderman in the city council, Pastor Wooten?
What I see is the destruction between community and police that has evolved over time. When I was the police, we engaged community and we united community and police together. So what they perceive to be a problem, we can actually interfere with that and intervene with that and make it a solution. If we don't have the relationship between police and community, we're going to continue to have this problem. Now, yes, I fought for police reform, but we have to understand that the police department has officers, a major amount of officers that really love doing their job. It's just a small fraction that is causing the department to actually look bad. But once we deal with that small fraction, the rest of them is out here to serve the community and to work with the community like they've been hired to do. That's what we have to focus on. It's not the destruction of those small elements that is causing our department and our community to stay separated. We got to reunite and unite ourselves together so we can fight this here issue together.
Thank you, Pastor Wooten.
One of the things that we must ask ourselves the question is this: how is it that we have methadone clinics but no mental health clinics? Dr. Barbara Brumville, who's here as an officer, is also a clinician. A lot of crimes that is happening in this world that are not invested in to get the help they need to prevent the crime. Let's be clear. We know the address of every criminal. We know the address of where the crime is. A strategic plan with this presence. Presence doesn't stop, but at least it calls you to think twice. And so we have officers, again, we want our fair share of safety equity. Downtown, cops are stationed. Downtown is a deterrent. And downtown, cops are present where there's crime, period. And so what I want is not necessarily cops to be targeted by residents, because residents are afraid of both officer and criminal. We just saw 5 officers kill a Black man. So what we need is a strategy that says respect us, serve us, while we invest in people so that they don't continue the same crimes over and over again. Again, it was a time and place in this ward where officers knew each other, where officers knew neighbors. Let's have community conversations in a way that is collective work together and not just pointing the finger and complaining about what's absent. Thank you.
Here's an interesting question. In 2021, Mayor Lori Lightfoot and her allies passed a speed camera ordinance that ticketed drivers going over 6 miles per hour over the speed limit. The ordinance has since generated millions and millions for the city, but it has disproportionately affected Black and brown neighborhoods. The speed camera at 536 East Morgan and Washington Park is the highest revenue generated camera in the city, over $3 million in 2021 and generated, and it is expected to generate even more from 2022. As a candidate for alderman, will you, like Anthony Beale, introduce an ordinance that will repeal this ordinance on the city council? Pastor Wooten.
I definitely will. As a Chicago police officer, I understand we even give people breaks at least 10 miles an hour. You know, and we understand that these red light cameras are revenue generators. I've been a victim of that as well, okay? But I paid my tickets. You know, but we have to understand that when the mayor actually reduced that down to 6 miles an hour, we knew it was a money grabber. We knew that, you know, it was not fair. And yes, it actually hit the Black and brown communities the most. We need to actually take those red light cameras and remodify the policy that controls it, but also in certain areas we need to alleviate it because it causes more accidents than it does harm. Safety.
So the question was for speeding cameras, not red light cameras, correct? All right. So for the speeding cameras, what really disturbs me is around our schools, people drive like bats out of hell. There are no speed bumps at a lot of them, and kids are scared. When we talk about safety, we have to talk about vehicle safety. And so a camera in a place that deters people from speeding and hitting people, stop signs, speed bumps, we have to look at a safety plan that makes drivers slow down. Second of all, I don't believe that these schemes and gimmicks are helping anybody. A speed camera is supposed to deter people from driving fast, but that location, I don't see any accidents that many on record. If the objective is to slow down to prevent accidents, it makes sense. But these cameras are not stopping accidents because the data shows there were not many accidents before, during, and after these cameras. So what I'm saying is this: no device that finds people that is irrelevant to the safety and the wellness of the community, but a safety plan that makes vehicles slow down in areas of kids and seniors is a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now going to turn to the portion where questions will be coming from you and as well as the Chesterfield Community Council. I'm going to read the questions from the Community Council first. In November, the Chesterfield Community Council submitted a list of street resurfacing requests and traffic control on 87th Street to Alderman Rod Sawyer's office. All of our requests is currently in motion with city officials. Will you commit to honoring our request? Pastor Hall.
First thing first, we have to look at every project that's open. There are some projects that are in motion now while he's leaving office. I will commit to any project that makes us safe, any project that brings stability back to crumbled infrastructure. Right now, our ward is falling apart, and it's no secret. And so the question I have to also raise is, how did they get priority of the other priorities? So I don't know all the facts. So for me to make a decision or to make a promise without facts is irresponsible leadership. But what I will commit to today is evaluating every open project and every new project that's needed to bring infrastructure development to this ward and to make sure that everybody has a ward that when you walk outside, you are grateful to live in your neighborhood. Again, I can't make a decision without the facts. Making pre-decisions before there's facts is irresponsible, and I can't do that, and I won't do that.
Well, we must understand that anything that's already been placed in motion already is not something that we can actually go back and change, because those things are already been placed and the present alderman has already pushed it through. So we can't go in and say, well, you know what, we're going to look at it and then make a decision, because you can't do that. May is when we get sworn in. And when we get sworn in, we actually take office June. The new budget is going to start, a couple of months after that. That's when we're going to be very much effective about what we're going to be doing the following year. So we have to begin to actually understand that not only are we dealing with what we already presently have, but we have to focus on how we can make that better for the future. So when we actually build and have what we call participatory budgeting, that's going to be a process that we have where community members will be able to sit with us and they can talk about things that they want to do in the future. So presently, right now, we have to deal with what the alderman has already got in place, but yet we have to prepare for our future. Thank you.
Pastor Wooten, please be specific about your plan to improve 79th Street, and are you willing to work with Alderman Michelle Harris regarding 79th and Cottage Grove intersection?
79th Street is a major thoroughfare, and it connects many wards. We have to make 79th Street safe again. We have to make 79th Street more vibrant so people can actually driving through there on the CTA or in a vehicles are looking at something that they can be appealed to. That's what brought me over to Chatham, is the ability to see businesses that was thriving and people that was loving. That's what I want to make sure of, that, yes, every alderman should have a working relationship in order to build a community that is connecting wards. We got to deal with one fashion that we need to look at. 79th and Cottage Grove. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on 79th and Cottage Grove. And I will work with Michelle Harris, Alderman Michelle Harris, to make sure that we as a 6th ward could actually have a positive support base to make sure we can clean those areas up. Thank you.
Well, the specific thing that I would do is, number one, talk to Pastor Gordon at Carter Temple, because right there on the corner, they own all of that land. That's a possibility right there where the Mahalia Jackson project is. That's a huge lot that we must figure out, what can we do there? We have something great. Will it stay? Will it evolve? Will he build? We don't know, but they are landlords there. When you go down east on 79th Street, you got to ask yourself this question. We have beauty shops, liquor stores, and how many restaurants? How many cultural connections do we have? We have a Family Dollar that's right there on 79th Street. That's an area of concern, right? We have so many what was, but we need to look at what needs to become. We have a beautiful workforce development facility next door to the Alderman's office that's not being utilized. Stories upon stories of rooms that could be used for job training, second chance programs, opportunities for neighbors to use it for block club meetings and other community events. So we have to evaluate and do a hard inventory and who the landlords are as well. All of these buildings, somebody owns them. And we have to, if necessary, begin to find those bad landlords that are keeping dilapidated buildings on 79th Street.
Pastor Hall, recently the city of Chicago invested millions of dollars on upgrades for McDade School. Currently, the playground and walking path is closed to the community during weekends and summer months. Will you work with the Chesterfield Community Council in advocating for the opening the playground and walking path on weekends and the summer months?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a similar problem that they have at Ruggles. Ruggles has a park that's attached to it, and there's issues with operational hours, there's issues with cleanliness. They had tennis courts that are abandoned now, and things are going through them. So what we have to look at is a fair equity plan in which that part of the community, which is ours, because we pay tax dollars for it, is used for community purposes. Principal Gray, she's a great woman, and she has a very good vision. So we have to have the conversation. Again, you can't crucify somebody. You can't say what you're going to do without having the facts. So the more facts I get about that land and the better that it can do for the community, then we can always figure it out. But then we must ask the question. We are focusing on McDade getting millions of dollars, even though Harlan is not in our ward. Kids from our ward go there and there's no swimming pool there. So we have to ask ourselves the question, how much equity are we investing in these facilities that our kids are going to, that they're playing in, that you look at every day too? Northside schools and campuses and parks look completely different than ours. So let's have an investment equity plan with all of the campuses.
Thank you, Pastor Hall.
Plans.
Could you repeat that question again? Because I know we went all over the universe on that.
Sure. Recently, the city of Chicago invested millions of dollars on upgrades for McDade School. Currently, the playground and walking path is closed to the community during weekends and the summer months. Will you work with the Chesterfield Community Council in advocating for opening the playground and walking path on weekends and summer months?
I definitely would actually work with both parties to ensure that we can actually come up with some type of solution. During Election Day, we had an opportunity to work in that area, visit that area, and see how it was very much beautified. And it can actually become very well accommodating to the community's use. So I would definitely sit with Chesterfield to see if we can actually work with the principal to come up with some type of resolution to where the community can use that park. Because when we look at that area, that community there, that's a very stable community right there. You don't have any problems over there. You know, as a police officer, I have never received, had calls over there, but it's a very stable community that's just want to utilize. And that was actually, someone approached me on Election Day and asked me the same question. And they brought that to my attention that we don't even have access to this here park. So I'm looking forward to actually sitting down with Chesterfield and the principal to see if we can come up with a solution so that the community members can actually be able to actually service that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Police Superintendent David Brown's final day is next week. We don't know who will be our next mayor, but obviously the next mayor will have that choice of appointing the next superintendent. As an aldermanic candidate, will you advocate for the next police superintendent to come from the ranks of the Chicago Police Department? Pastor Hall?
Absolutely. We bypassed two great ones, Officer West, Officer Cato. At the end of the day, to bring in somebody from the outside that don't have relationships here, that don't know people here, you spend your first 2 to 3 years saying hello. The number skyrocketed under his watch. And so what I'm going to propose in city council and what I would bring to the city council floor or whatever committee I have to go to is what you expect from the superintendent, what our plan of safety is, and how we can get that in alignment with CPD. I think to keep us out of these selection processes as a collective, as a community, have a committee that doesn't look like us, that doesn't represent us, nor has a sixth ward interest is dangerous. And then yet we're stuck with somebody that might not have our interests, might not have our neighborhood or ward as a priority. So whenever given the opportunity to voice or to vote, I would bring your voice and your vote to the city council or committee to say who we want to lead a safety plan for our ward in our city. Thank you.
We've had failed leadership in 3 outsiders: Weiss, Brown, and McCarthy. And that's because they don't know Chicago. They don't know the officers that they're actually supposed to be overseeing. The department has to have someone from within who understands the structure of the department, who understands the city makeup, but also who's going to be fair. We can't have someone in there who's going to overlook things, but we have to have someone that's going to be fair. Now, we have, as a community, we have several people that come to mind that would fit that position just well. And we are already in talks as a community of who would we like to see so we can submit recommendations to the next the next mayor, so they can be under consideration. But another thing that we have to understand is that we have a system in place to assist us right now with selecting a new superintendent. And that is through the district council that we elected on election day. So this is a partnership.
Thank you, Pastor Wooten.
Thank you.
I'll now come to the portion where the questions come from you. One resident in this room has asked this question, very good question. Inglewood is part of the 6th ward. In fact, Inglewood is split among 5 or 6 aldermen. And for the longest time, they have felt ignored. What are your plans for economic development in Inglewood? Pastor Hall?
Well, absolutely correct.
They want you to be specific, Pastor
Absolutely, absolutely correct. The issue that we have had in Inglewood is simply there's so many alderpersons in one little section of the ward. And so one of the things we're going to evaluate is where are the assets in Inglewood. Right now, we saw what happened. You brought in all of those big boxes and they were not sustained by the community because a working person in Inglewood couldn't afford $10 for bread. And so we have to look at a small business model in which we empower small business owners in Inglewood. Inglewood is connected to a group called RAGE. RAGE is an organization that's a very, very big anchor that has skyrocketed entrepreneurs, artists, and the collective. So we have to work with RAGE to find out where the economic base is, along with those who are in Inglewood that want to start businesses and create business incubators. Inglewood has a lot of properties in which you can split it up, in which the rent can be low, the product can be outside the doors, and they can actually make a profit. And so the issue that we have with Inglewood is space. Number 2, entrepreneurship engagement. And then number 3, sustainability that not only the residents can afford, but again, those from the outside can afford as well. Thank you.
Inglewood has been kind of put on the side, and it's been put on the side intentionally for the past 12 years. We have to get Inglewood engaged. Inglewood is just as important to the 6th ward as every other community. And we have to begin to actually bring resources into the Inglewood community and bring them to the table with the rest of the communities in the ward. Give them the same opportunity to actually have members, part of the Chamber of Commerce that we're looking at putting together, have an opportunity to actually connect with the resources, get connected with the stakeholders in Inglewood so we can come up with a plan on how to actually build our base on the west side of the expressway. We have to engage people more in the Inglewood community so they can understand that they are part of this ward. There is no separation of communities in our ward. We have to be united in order for us to be successful down at the 5th floor. If we don't get Inglewood on point with us, or we don't get on point with Inglewood, we're going to lose a very valuable resource in our ward. Thank you.
Pastor Wooten, what criteria or the vetting process will you utilize to bring businesses to our community?
Well, the most important piece is that what we've been missing resources and representation with our businesses. Businesses have been coming into the ward and just setting up shop and not having the connection or the resources. So we need to make sure that, and I say this time and time again, we need to have a chamber of commerce in place in the 6th Ward that's going to be able to actually help these businesses grow. Recruit people in our own community who have home-based businesses and showing them how to bring those businesses onto the storefront. Connect with these property owners so we can actually help develop. Now, there is a program that is present right now that people can get grant money to help build their storefronts out. And when they do that, now it beautifies us, but it also gives people an opportunity to take their businesses and showcase it to the rest of the community. So these are the things that we must do. We have to make our opportunities available to all of our businesses and make it attractive. So when we actually show our people that we're going to support them, I was just meeting yesterday with a doctor over on 75th Street, and he was telling me how people don't come in and patronize his business. We as a body has to support our own. We have to come together so we can actually keep our dollars floating in our own community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Pastor Hall?
One of the things that we have not done well is businesses pop up, but no participation in the community. Wherever there is a business that wants to come, there will be a community meeting for every stakeholder in the community and residents to have the questions with the potential business owner. There's no secret deals that will be made in which the alderman and the business owner come together, and then the business comes without you all's blessings, questions, and critiques. Now, here's the thing. We can't run every business away. We cannot bully every business owner. We have to work together. We need businesses to generate tax revenue, but we cannot have non-law-abiding businesses in the ward. Secondly, every business owner will get a wraparound service kit when they open their business, where they can get a directory of all of the services that they're going to need to sustain a law-abiding, thriving business. The third thing is, again, once a month, all business owners will be welcome to the office to meet with the office to get resources from the office. Again, in that meeting as well, if there are areas of concerns that are in those wards, business owners will be able to have a chance to adjust so that they can be good, prosperous partners in the ward.
Thank you, Pastor Hall. Excuse me. Now, I'm going to combine these two questions because they're so important, and I totally understand why whoever asked these questions. But if you can, please be specific. And these questions really regard specific parts of the community and concerns that we get at the Crusader all the time, that people call us. You know, this street lamp is out, this bush hasn't been trimmed. I remember one time I was covering a story where I parked at a house and I was interviewing a historian, and I came out and there was a parking ticket, a ticket on my car. And I was just looking all around and I said, well, where is the sign that said you had to have a specific decal or anything? And I looked for about a half an hour and I found it, and it was right behind a tree whose branches had never been trimmed. So it was hiding. So I took the city to court and I won. But when I did the story, I got so many calls from people who had the same experience. And these specific calls really show how much you're really tuned to the needs of the community. People do care about their streets. They do care about traffic. They do care about, whether street lamps are out. And many times these calls go so ignored and people don't get a call back. They call the alderman's office. I've talked to streets and sanitation many times, and that same tree that hit that sign with the decal is back the same way as it was again. One of these questions is, there's a street light on 87th Street that needs to be upgraded badly. Will you make these issues a priority when you're elected to the city council? Pastor Hall.
Which issue will I make a priority, the light on 87th Street or The latter part of the question.
The light on 87th Street and issues like this.
Yeah. One of the things that we are suffering with is customer service, period. You call the alderman's office, you get a voicemail, you don't get a call back, you don't know who you're talking to. You got to call 5, 6 times just to get basic stuff done. One of the things we're going to have is our own log. Now, you got to call 311. That's just the way it is. Hopefully, we can change that. But you have to call 311 and you get a rec number. You get that rec number, you send it to us, you call us, email us, however you get it to us. And there will be multiple ways for you to communicate with myself as well as our staff, and we will follow up on your behalf.
Pastor Hall, let me interrupt you there. I'm going to do a follow-up question on that. I did another story where me as a renter, we went nearly 40 days without hot water. And I did the story and I outed my own landlord. He was not happy with it, but I didn't care. So part of the problem was the 311 system. We logged the calls and we documented every single one. We even downloaded the app. There were 41 calls total.
Oh my God.
41. We could not get one single call back. And that's me as a resident. So what do? Instead of being a tenant, I said, I'm just going to be a journalist. So I just emailed Lori Lightfoot's office. The problem was solved that same day.
Absolutely.
So how will you address the 311 system?
So secondly, once we get the log, then I show up. And I show up with the departments to get it done. Because we saw a situation on roads where Pastor Hardy, who had a hole that was 6 feet deep, she complained about it for 5 years. Went to the media, it got done in 2 hours. Now, if the alderman, which I will be, walks the blocks the same way you walk the block to get signatures and shake hands, then these problems would exist. You will have a walking alderman, a visible alderman, a present alderman to deal with problems. That's the job description. Solve the problems, and I'm showing up with the departments to get it done, period. That's the way it happens on the north side. We're going to get the same love and respect on the south side. Show up with the solution. After I know about the solution. I got you.
Thank you, Pastor Wooten.
I love your energy. But we have to understand how the system works. Yes, it works when your legislature, when your representative is in contact. Yes, it works when you have someone in place making sure that the system is working. Because a lot of times, even when I was a police officer, right, people will report things and it will fall on deaf ears. And then when I would get it, I would call up and I get some resolution. See, we have to understand how the system actually works. Yeah, we can do all the walking we want, okay? But if you don't know how to connect with downtown, guess what? Nothing gonna happen. So I'm here to tell you how the system works, because I do understand that when you call 311, they get so many calls that your call, your request will go unanswered. In my office, when I'm alderman, I will make sure we have a city service liaison rep there. And they will not only follow up and look on 311's call logs, but they would also be receiving calls from you that we would also make sure we go out there and deal with. Because we have to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do in order to have a good community, quality of life.
Here's another related question. What is the plan for the large vacant lot on the northeast corner of 95th Street and State Street? That's called the red line. That's red line. Now, hold on. Who asked this question? I'm just curious. Can you stand up? Is there any?
Mm-hmm. Can I? Mm-hmm. Well, can I answer that question, Ron?
Absolutely.
Okay, that land is part of the Red Line extension. Okay, that land is a part of the redevelopment of 95th Street. Yes, it belongs to CTA at this moment. Okay, but they have a project in place where that land is going to be developed. Now, you remember now, That area was the 9th ward. It is now again the 6th ward. And I will actually have, I will be actually working hard with the Red Line Extension Project to make sure that the ward is actually being taken care of. Because now there's millions of dollars that's just been given for the project from 79th and from the metro station all the way down to Halsted. So that whole area is about to be revamped. And money has been given to do a study, and we want to make sure we're at the table to make sure that we're actually getting exactly what the community needs in those areas. Thank you.
Pastor Hall.
Well, let's talk to the neighbors. You all live next door to that. West Chesterfield has a skin in the game. So what do the neighbors want? Number one. Number two, let's look at what's already been envisioned by the neighbors. This lot has been vacant for years, so there's been a lot of time to think about, envision, and also begin to work. So whatever's going to be there is going to be in partnership with the residents that live there, because they are more connected to it than those on other parts of the ward. And so nothing will come that the residents of West Chesterfield don't want. But one thing, what we don't want and what we don't need is another fast food restaurant to close like across the other side of the aisle. What we don't need is a liquor depot for people to get liquor, get on the expressway and go. What we don't need is something that does not include entrepreneurship opportunities for local entrepreneurs to have either shelf space or storefront space that they can afford. What we don't need is to be disconnected from Chicago State. That has a lot of different bodies that are present, and we need to figure out how we can work together. So your voice will be at the table, you will shape it, you will build it, and it will be something that we can all be proud of.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Okay, here's a question. I can read this. Let me see. What can be done about all the congestion and crime in the area west of King Drive from 79th to 87th Street? Who asked this question? I'm just curious. I mean, you don't have to stand up. Can you stand up, please? Is there any, what type of crime goes on there that you're concerned about or you've experienced?
There are several shootings that you hear about on the news constantly, where someone in some apartment here or there has been shot and killed. It is a very high crime area, and it is very densely populated.
Yeah, I remember several years ago, there were 3 bodies found in a house that decomposed over a 2-week period. It was a mother and her 2 children. And I don't think they ever solved that crime, solved that murder, solved those. It was determined that they were murdered. They had marks on their neck, so they were strangled. So, Pastor Hall, you want to go first in responding to this question?
Yeah, the first thing we're going to do is brighten up the entire ward, but specifically that section. It's dark, and it will be paid for with state money as well as city money. The capital budget has a lot of lines for infrastructure projects, so we don't have to wait for the participatory process and or the menu money to hold up fixing basic things in that section. Secondly, we need to find out all the management companies that own these buildings or manage these buildings, because they get away with bringing people into these buildings and not holding them accountable. And the third thing we're going to do is put a task force in place, because we know the addresses where the criminals are and where the crimes are taking place. And let's have a task force that includes not necessarily just patrols of cops, but mental health professionals. These are those who can walk, as well as the violence intervention and prevention specialists that we already have. So we have them in different parts of the ward, but they're not specifically being told where to go where the crime is. Violence intervention workers present, brighter blocks with lights that are paid for by the state and the city. Thirdly, we are holding accountable landlords and management companies, and hopefully we see a reduction in crime.
Thank you, Pastor Hall.
You know, you use mental health as one of the biggest problems of crime, and I want you to know that it's not the biggest problem in crime. The crime that we see today is a lack of respect for law. And those are individuals that are not mentally, yes, we need to actually revisit opening the mental health facilities, because there's a lot of people, hold on, let me finish. There's a lot of people who are suffering out here, and we cannot associate all mental health with crime. But what we have to understand is that when we look at 79th to 87th from King Drive to State Street, yes, we have an influx of a lot of residential properties over there that has a lack of policing. We need to make sure that we do hold police accountable. Again, this is what I'm talking about when I say foot patrol, when I talk about beat integrity. Officers need to be present where they're supposed to be at and work in those areas where they're supposed to work at. Because when we are enabled, then we are victimized. So we need to enable our officers so they're able to get out here and do the job that they're supposed to do. We want to make
Thank
sure
you,
that
Pastor
we
Wooten.
brighten up the area.
Thank you, Pastor Wooten. Pastor Hall, it looks like you wanted to respond to that. Do you want to get this opportunity to?
Yeah, again, we have methadone clinics, but no mental health clinics. The individuals that are participate in these crimes, I can't talk about a life I ain't lived. They tore up our church 4 months ago. Individual wild hair, leg missing, our pants leg missing, throwing bricks against the windows. That person was distressed. The officer showed up, knew the gentleman by his name. He ran. This man has been causing mucks at different gas stations. He needs additional help because he goes to jail and gets back out. So at the end of the day, a disinvestment in human life is a crime. And we've seen time and time again, budget cuts, burdens put on us, and people not cared for with the basic things. Mental health does not stop crime. It gives people alternative to process the issues they have that cause the crime.
That's right.
Let's invest in people and then respect our officers because they matter just as much as the individual do too. It's not an either or, it's a both thing.
Thank you, Pastor Hall. 1 minute for you, Pastor Wooten, rebuttal, and then we're going to have our closing statement. We do have more questions for you, but we don't have enough time. Afterwards, you can go to the candidates and can ask these specific questions. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, we do have to invest in our mental health facilities. Yes, we do have to help our people, but mental health is not the ones that's out here robbing people and doing carjackings and Cadillac converters. They're not the ones out here burglarizing. We have a whole different fashion of people that we got to deal with when we talk about crime, Mr. Hall. Okay, we have a whole lot of things that we need to be focusing on. All right. Yes, we need to have mental health facility. 38 liquor establishments in our community, not one mental health facility. That's wrong. 38 liquor establishments, not one grocery store in our community. That's wrong. We have been actually bred in a community and has been given us this here community that has actually invited crime instead of help. And we need to change that trajectory when I'm alderman. So, Mr. Hall, get the facts straight. I love your energy. I love how you get out here and throw it out here, but we have to get the facts straight. We have to get the facts straight. We're not showboating. We need to help our people. We need to help our ward.
Pastor Wooten. Thank you, Pastor Wooten. We will now have our closing statements. Pastor Hall, 2 minutes.
I want to say to each of you, you've given up an hour of your time today, and I want to say thank you. Time you don't get back. And I hope that you all were able to hear some things. If you got some questions, we're going to stick around a little bit because I want to clarify anything. But I'll say this. We're on the verge of either building our ward or our ward going further down a spiral. I want to unify our ward. Every section of this ward matters. And so what I want to say to you all today is this. We started this journey with little to nothing. We met more and more people walking and listening because the measure of a good leader is not what you talk about, but what you listen and do. That's why God gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth. And as we've been listening, we hear time and time again, number one, I want to say for community. And what I want to say to you all is this, it works. What works is an investment in life because all of us are one conversation away from losing our minds. If one thing we can say about COVID is this, COVID caused mental distress amongst us. Anytime you shut down mental clinics and don't give alternatives to people that are already mentally distressed, we're going to see an influx of what we will build a safe community that says to human beings, you matter, but we invest in you to prevent you from destroying me. Hurt people hurt people. And we're seeing a hurt in our community because when children don't go to school and they don't see the same windows clear, same computers, Same resources as the north side, they're hurting too. So we want schools in this ward that makes people want to come here and live. We have 19 schools, 9 are failing. That means that those 9 schools or so are literally being cut off from the resources that kids need to get those schools off probation. We want 5-star schools. We want our kids to be excited about going to school.
Thank you, Pastor Hall.
That was a whole 2 minutes. God bless you.
Yes, it was.
It goes fast, don't it?
Go ahead, Pastor Wooden.
Okay. We have had 12 years of failure, 12 years of a lack of leadership, and we see where it's got us. We can't have that administration or those connections continued on. We have to change. We have to engage the people. We got to stop trying to be what they want us to be and be who we are to be. I'm an engager. I enlisted the help of the people so that we can work together to make our ward a better ward. I want the 6th ward to once again reach that pivotal point where we are the best ward by voting base in the city of Chicago, because we know numbers do matter. We know we have what it takes. The 6th ward is full of educated, brilliant people. We need to let them know downtown that on the 5th floor that we're nothing to play with. I'm not selected by the machine. I've been selected by the people, and I represent the people. I don't have all those endorsements, but I got the people. I don't have the governor's endorsement, but I got the people. I've been doing movie night with our seniors. I've been doing jazz in the park with our seniors. I've been doing youth programs with our youth. I've been feeding families. I've been solving crime. I've been working with the people, and the people have been working with me. That's why I'm here today to ask for your support on election day. Make me your next alderman so we can take this ward back to being the best. God bless you.
Thank you, William Hall. Thank you, Richard Wooten. And thank you all for coming. We're going to have a closing prayer by the pastor of this church. We definitely want to thank you all for coming. I said there are some other questions that weren't asked, so you're going to have opportunity for a few minutes before the pastor kicks us out to ask them. So again, I want to remind you of the Home Expo. There are flyers on the back table, April 22nd. It's absolutely free. There's going to be a bunch of services and programs that we need to know about and we need to take advantage of. Also, don't forget about, again, if you know of a senior or a college student who's away, make sure they get an absentee ballot application, please. It's important for everyone to have the opportunity to vote. Pastor Patterson.
This won't be the last time we get together. Wow, this is very spirited. I can imagine what your Sunday services are like. Wow. Oh, this has been a wonderful time. And listen, just be safe the rest of this day. And listen, it's going to take that love. I heard love mentioned. We need love. And we started this out with prayer, right? I think we do more praying on the blocks. Okay. Anybody remember that? And prayer in the park. Brother Washington sponsors that in June. We might need to have one in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. I can't vote because I don't live in Chicago, but I pastor here. So it matters to me what goes on. When I come to church throughout the week, trash, garbage, diapers, people pee in cups and leave it. And we have to pick all that stuff up. I'm trying to figure out how come you can't eat your Popeye's chicken at your dinner table rather than eating in front of my house or my church, dropping it. Okay. Anyway, we've had a number of shootings up here at this gas station. I'm hoping whoever the next alderman is will investigate the ownership of that gas station, because it did not just become a problem. It's been a problem. There's something going on beyond the pumps. And somebody needs to look in there and what they're doing in there, what they're selling, what's the attraction to that place, and why things happen there that don't necessarily happen across the street. Okay, listen, if I go any longer, I have to raise an offering. So let me stop. Let's stand and pray. My name is Bishop Richard Patterson, and I'm just glad to be of service and listen. Listen, I'm not running for anything but my life. Yes, I want to thank the Chicago police, and you all are invited on tomorrow. We start at 12 o'clock. If you get here about 11:45. We need a little watch out. But we've been blessed in this area. We've been blessed. And may I say this before we go? I had a moment. We used to have, listen, they used to steal our cars and all that kind of stuff. And just, they took tires off one car, set up on crates, came out of service. But I had a young man from the neighborhood who grew up, and he came, he said, Pastor, let me tell you something. He said, we love you. We love your church. And he said, I've been talking to some of the guys over there. He said, we declaring your church a neutral zone. So ain't gonna be no problems over there no more. And to God be the glory. That was God touching his heart. Don't get it twisted. It wasn't something he came up on his own. God touched their hearts to have love enough for the church to say we're not gonna mess with those people over there and mess with their stuff. So when we have problems over here, we know it's isolated and we know where to look. Am I saying something here? Amen. God bless you. We thank you, Lord, for your goodness, and we thank you for this very spirited moment. We ask God, again, your profound blessings upon these two candidates, and God, in the hearts of those who can vote, let them vote in concern for this community. And we bless you and we thank you right now, because let the 6th Ward again rise up like a shooting star. Let us be known for the good things. The red line travels through this ward. Bus lines up and down this ward. People are affected in so many different ways, and let it be a positive change for your glory. And we pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.